After a minor disagreement with Taylor earlier that morning, he invited me over to his home for a family dinner. But right in the middle of this cozy moment, I unexpectedly ran into the crowded hallway was bustling with people coming and going, and Taylor quickened his pace to keep up with me, moving so smoothly and familiarly that it felt as if we'd never had that morning's argument at all. Yet inside, I was torn by an inexplicable, nagging doubt. My gaze lingered on his tall, upright figure, refusing to let go. Was he simply born to be such a good-natured soul, habitually using gentleness to smooth over every conflict? Or was there something else at play, a calculated attempt to lull me into complacency with just the right amount of apology and tenderness? I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It's funny how his gait always seemed to compel passers-by to instinctively step aside for him, even without him making any deliberate effort. At first, I'd always assumed it was because he was tall, or maybe because of that effortless, relaxed aura he carried around, like nothing could ever disturb his composure. But now, that very composure somehow took on a new, elusive quality in my eyes, losing all the solid, reassuring stability it once had. At first, he didn't say a word, just gently nudged me with his elbow. "Hey," he said finally, "I'm sorry about what happened earlier." I turned my head to look at him. He looked genuinely sincere. His brows were slightly furrowed, the kind of expression he gets when he knows he's messed up but isn't quite sure how to make it right. I shrugged and said, "It's fine." He seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, as if he'd been holding his breath all along. But honestly, this whole thing was off from the start. I didn't mean to make you feel like I wasn't on your side. I shrugged again, this time moving more slowly than before. "I know you're just trying to be a good guy." Taylor slowed down his pace, keeping step with me closely. Even as the hallway grew increasingly crowded, he stayed right by my side. "I really am on your side, Penny," he said, then suddenly stopped walking. I turned around and looked at him with a hint of confusion. Before I could say a word, he raised his hand and gently cupped my face, his palm resting softly against my cheek, warm and comforting. "I'll always be on your side," he said. "It's just, I don't like conflict. You know." He said it so casually, so matter-of-factly, almost as if those 3 little words were enough to erase everything else. Maybe, in fact, they really were enough. I gave him a small, slightly stiff smile, yet one that was genuine enough. "I get it." And I really did. I understood completely and utterly. Taylor had always been the one who excelled at reconciliation. He'd always crack a joke when the atmosphere grew too heavy, always diffuse tension when tempers ran high, rather than stoking the flames. That was one of the very first reasons I fell for him. But then sometimes I found myself thinking that truly being on my side might actually mean not feeling the urgent need to smooth things over. Sometimes I wish he'd just let the tension linger for a bit, just a tiny bit, enough to prove that he's really, truly standing right by my side. But maybe it's not fair of me to think that way. Maybe it's just that I'm so tired and so sensitive. Because I'm still stewing over this morning's awful experience, I'm letting my mind wander aimlessly, clutching at it like some silly fool. Shaking off these thoughts, I try to lighten my tone. "Oh, by the way, what did you want to talk about?" Instantly, Taylor perks up, as if I've flipped some hidden switch. His hand drops back to his side, and his heels lift slightly before coming down again, a habit he has when he's excited but doesn't want to show it. "My parents called this morning," he says. "They're throwing a big family dinner tonight and want us to come over. And that includes you," he said. I blinked in surprise. "Me?" He chuckled softly. "Who else would I be talking about?" I stifled a laugh. "They don't exactly, take the initiative to invite me usually." "They like you," he said as if it were perfectly obvious. "You know that perfectly well." I did know. At least, I used to think I did. It's not that I wasn't popular. Taylor's parents had always been really nice to me, especially compared to my own parents, who mostly kept a polite distance from my life, except when they had trophies to show off. But they rarely made a special effort to invite me over. In the past, it was always more casual, like, "If you happen to be around, why don't you stay for dinner?" rather than, "Please do come over." "Is it some kind of special occasion?" I asked. Taylor shrugged his shoulders as if it were the most trivial thing in the world. They said it's a surprise. A surprise? Judging by their tone, they sounded really excited, so whatever it is, it must be something good. I stared at him for a few seconds, my skepticism evident. You're not even a little curious? He grinned mischievously. Not curious at all. If it's good news, I figure it's worth waiting for. I made a face. I hate waiting for surprises the most. I know, he said with a sly smile. You're just like a cat scratching at a closed door. I gently nudged his ribs with my elbow. He grabbed my wrist in one swift move and pulled me half a step closer to him, as if we were dancing a waltz. Relax, ballet girl, he said. It's going to be fun. I rolled my eyes, but couldn't help the corners of my mouth from curling upward. There was just something about him that made it impossible to stay mad, at least not for long. He was always so cheerful and confident, convinced that the world had good things in store for him. Maybe I should take a page from his book. Maybe tonight is exactly what I need, something to shake off this strange, heavy mood of mine. I've still got rehearsal, I reminded him. I know, he said. I already told him it's okay. He grinned again, his smile bright and radiant. I'll pick you up after rehearsal. This time, I'm definitely not going to forget, he added with a playful wink. I snorted softly. Fingers crossed. If you'd like, I could even bring along some snacks. Are you trying to bribe me? Does it work? I laughed. A little bit, maybe. He nudged me gently with a shoulder, and we started walking forward side by side again. The hallway was gradually emptying out, and as the school bell was about to ring, more classroom doors slammed shut one after another. We stopped at the door of my classroom. Taylor leaned down and pressed a kiss on top of my head, a brief, casual kiss that nonetheless sent a warm wave through my heart. See you at 5, he said. 5 o'clock, I repeated, even mimicking his gesture as I gave him a little salute. Then he turned around and walked away, blending into the bustling crowd of students. His hoodie flickered in and out among backpacks, lively chatter, and worn-out sneakers. I watched his back for a few seconds, not because I didn't trust him, nor because I was worried about anything. It felt so good. To have someone worth waiting for, and someone who's waiting for you too. Shaking off these thoughts, I dashed into the classroom just 1 second before the bell rang. The water flowing from the insurgee by the wall of the practice room had a metallic taste, but I still filled my cup and took a big gulp. The icy liquid slid down my throat, sending a sharp pang of pain all the way through. At the other end of the practice room, Mrs. Loretto continued pacing back and forth, looking every bit like a general inspecting the wreckage of a battlefield. Her high-heeled shoes clicked rhythmically against the hardwood floor. This was the only sound in the room, aside from the stifled sobs of the 3 girls. That's just how the atmosphere felt today. Mrs. Loretto wasn't angry solely because we'd been dancing poorly. Okay, maybe someone had indeed danced terribly today. But more than that, she was truly beside herself with rage. As rehearsal reached its 1-hour mark, a piece of news exploded like a hand grenade. The auditions for the spring celebration had been moved up a week. It's 2 whole days earlier than scheduled. Apparently, there was a double booking. Our originally reserved venue was snatched away by another company. Now everything's completely chaotic. Right there in the middle of the practice room, Madame Loretto erupted into a furious outburst, her hands flying wildly as French profanities and angry English curses mingled together. Anyone who dared to meet her gaze would get a scathing reprimand. But just as she reached the height of her anger, she suddenly paused, her eyes sweeping over each girl who was desperately holding back tears. Her voice took on an almost imperceptible note of exhaustion. I know this is brutal, but opportunities only come to those who are prepared. You can't just fall apart like this. It's so unfair, she screamed. So unprofessional. So cruel. The pressure of the festival season had already nearly driven the girls to their breaking point, and this news was nothing short of the final straw. Half the rehearsal room was either trembling, stifling tears, or simply burying their faces in towels and sobbing uncontrollably. I tightened the lid on my water bottle and leaned my head against the wall for a few seconds to catch my breath. Mrs. Loretto's anger actually had nothing to do with me, at least not today. Aside from yesterday's disastrous blunder, my performance lately had been spot on. Indeed, even better than expected. My solo dance sequence had been flowing smoothly for weeks now, and the choreography was etched so deeply into my bones that my muscle memory was so strong I could land every move flawlessly, even half asleep or half awake. To be honest, those extra 2 days wouldn't have made the slightest difference to me anyway. But I'd absolutely, positively never say that out loud. Mrs. Loretto always found something to criticize. She'd always done so. It was her job and also her greatest pleasure. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 5:15. Taylor was probably already waiting in the parking lot outside, his engine idling, windows rolled down, just like always. He texted me when he arrived, 10 minutes early, as usual. He could never remember his chemistry homework, yet he was strangely punctual when it came to this kind of thing. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, feeling restless and fidgety. At the other end of the practice room, another girl burst into tears, her voice breaking as she failed to execute the triple pirouette. Mrs. Loretto shot both arms up sharply. "Enough," she snapped. "That's it for today. Go home. Don't you dare embarrass yourselves in front of me." The poor girl began sobbing even harder, stumbling out of the practice room, her ballet slippers screeching against the floor. Mrs. Loretto pressed her fingers against her temples, as if trying to ease a migraine, then bellowed at the rest of us. "Get out. Everyone get out. Go home and get some rest. Rest up and come back tomorrow with fresh energy. Don't waste your time in front of me. And for heaven's sake, don't waste your own talent." As soon as she finished speaking, she casually tossed an unopened bottle of mineral water toward the girl who was crying the hardest. Her gesture was rough, yet beneath it lay a flicker of reluctance. Everyone scrambled to grab their bags, as if they'd suffer dire consequences if they hesitated even a second longer. I was no exception. I snatched up my bag and water bottle, then practically jogged toward the exit. "Penelope," Mrs. Loretto's voice sliced through the noisy commotion like a blade. I froze in place, my heart sinking just a bit. I could have made an excuse, said I had to leave, that someone was waiting for me. But then again, arguing with Mrs. Loretto would have been even more foolish than spitting into a hurricane. Turning around, I tightened my grip on my bag. "What can I do for you, ma'am?" She stepped into the practice room with precise, measured strides, coming straight toward me, each step sending my heart skipping a beat. For a fleeting moment, I'd prepared myself, ready to brace for her reprimand, her criticism, or even her merciless scolding. But instead, she stopped right in front of me, crossing her arms over her chest. "You did a good job today," she said, her tone still devoid of warmth, yet her eyes seemed just a bit softer than usual. She even reached out and lightly patted my tense shoulder, a touch so gentle, yet it sent a shiver straight through my chest. I blinked once, then twice. Had she, just now, actually praised me? "Did you hear me?" she asked sharply. "I heard you, ma'am," I stammered. "Thank you." She waved her hand impatiently, as if she couldn't stand hearing words of thanks, but her voice carried an unexpected note of careful instruction. For the second half of the routine, the big jump followed by the arabesque. When you land, your turnout isn't wide enough. You start to lose it halfway through. Fix that. The audition's been moved up, so don't let a little flaw like this trip you up. And hey, don't push yourself too hard during practice. Watch out for your ankles. I nodded vigorously, nearly dislodging my hair bun in the process. "I'll do it." "You've got real potential," she said reluctantly, "as long as you don't get lazy." "I won't," I promised, my heart pounding wildly. "Good," she said abruptly, then turned sharply and strode away without even waiting for my reply. I let out a long breath, feeling all the tension in my body finally melt away. I packed up as fast as I could, practically sprinting out of the practice room, slung my bag over my shoulder, and took off running at full speed. Taylor's car was indeed parked exactly where I'd expected it to be, its engine humming softly with the windows slightly open. He was sitting in the driver's seat, lightly tapping the steering wheel to a song I couldn't hear, looking utterly relaxed, as if he hadn't spent half an hour waiting for me at all. As soon as he spotted me, he sat up straight and smiled, waving at me cheerfully. Not a trace of impatience showed on his face. I hurried across the parking lot, yanked open the car door, and dumped my bag onto the floor by my feet. "I'm so sorry, so sorry, so sorry," I blurted out in one breath. Rehearsal was a total disaster. Ms. Loretto went ballistic, half the practice room was in tears, and I even thought someone was about to faint right there. Taylor chuckled softly and shifted the car into gear, starting it up. "Sounds like quite the adventure," he said. "It was pure torture," I complained as I buckled my seatbelt. "And then she actually kept me behind, guess what? She said I danced pretty well, though she did point out that I need to work on my outward turns. Still, I might just make it through the audition after all." "See?" He reached over and gave my knee a little pinch. "I told you, you're totally awesome." I rolled my eyes but couldn't help smiling. Warmth flooded my heart once again. We drove out of the parking lot and onto the main road, heading toward his place. I dug a pair of jeans out of my bag, trying to put them on without unfastening my seatbelt. My movements were clumsy and risky, but I certainly couldn't show up for dinner wearing just my tight workout clothes and bodysuit. Taylor glanced at me and chuckled. "Need a hand?" "Only if you don't want me to accidentally kick you in the face," I said. "You're kind of tempting," he replied, making me burst into laughter. Finally, after much effort, I managed to slip the jeans over my workout outfit. Then I rummaged through the bottom of my bag and pulled out a loose, soft cardigan to throw on top. It wasn't exactly a high-fashion ensemble, but it'd have to do. I snapped off the passenger side rear-view mirror, quickly applied a coat of mascara, and tried to look less like someone who'd just been yelled at for 2 hours straight. "You're beautiful," Taylor said, his eyes still fixed on the road. I smiled, feeling a bit shy. Even sweet talk can't change the fact that we're late. He chuckled softly. "Well, it never hurts to try." The drive wasn't long, about 15 minutes, maybe, but it felt like it flew by in a flash. Maybe it was because I kept fidgeting with my leg the whole way, my nerves churning restlessly beneath my skin. We were already nearly 30 minutes late. Taylor didn't seem worried at all, but I just couldn't shake the tightness in my chest. I hated being late, especially to an occasion that felt so incredibly important. We turned into his driveway, and the house looked warm and bright in the evening light. The porch lights were already on. Taylor got out of the car first and jogged around to open the passenger side door for me, acting like some goofy gentleman. I smiled as he graciously helped me out. As soon as we stepped inside, a rich aroma of garlic, freshly baked bread, and sizzling steak filled the air. The warm glow from the living room spilled onto the wooden dining table, where an exquisitely set table, complete with checkered tablecloth, delicate silverware, and a vase of sunflowers, welcomed us. Everywhere you looked, there was that cozy, homey vibe that only comes from the warmth of a real-life kitchen. No sooner had we entered than his mom came rushing over to give me a hug, her hands still covered in flour, as if she'd just stepped out of the kitchen. Mrs. Hayes was a bit plump, with eyes that always sparkled brightly. Her golden hair was tousled and loosely styled into a messy bun, and she wore an apron tied around her waist, looking as though she could start filming a cooking show at any moment. "We've missed you so much, sweetheart." She buried her face in my hair and hugged me tightly. When she finally let go of me, Mr. Hayes stepped over and gave me a one-armed hug, his scent mingled with aftershave and the warmth of his sweater. In his hand was a bottle of juice, which he thrust into mine without a word. "I know dancing takes a lot out of you, so I got you some ice-cold juice specially." "Long time no see, little one. I heard you're getting better and better at ballet, huh?" He grinned as he tousled my hair. Right away, Taylor piped up, protesting. "Dad, stop messing with her hair all the time. She's finally managed to get it styled." "Hey, my hair's just fine," I protested, unable to suppress a laugh. Mrs. Hayes chuckled and patted Taylor on the back. "Only you'd be so protective of her. Come on, sit down already. The steak will be ready soon, and I even baked your favorite mashed potatoes." "Next time, I'll make sure to mess it up even more," he joked. The living room was filled with our laughter. Taylor pulled me down onto the sofa and handed me a freshly baked little cookie, Its sweet aroma melted on my tongue. Their warm welcome felt like a soothing current, melting away all the anxiety in my heart. Mrs. Hayes flitted between the kitchen and the living room, occasionally striking up casual chats with us, asking whether I was tired from dancing practice. Meanwhile, Mr. Hayes regaled us with tales of Taylor's mischievous childhood antics. How, as a kid, Taylor had deliberately hidden his sneakers to skip class, only to get caught red-handed by his mom. This is exactly what I'd been longing for. This is exactly what I'd always needed, the feeling of home, even if this wasn't really my own home. Taylor sat beside me and quietly took my hand. The warmth of his palm brought me an incredible sense of comfort. The tiny doubts I'd had about him just moments ago seemed to fade away in this cozy atmosphere. I was just about to open my mouth to say thank you. This has been the happiest evening I've had in a long time, when suddenly a deliberately clear throat sounded behind me, shattering the warm atmosphere of the room. The voice was both familiar and strange, sending a chill through my veins. The smile on my face froze instantly, and instinctively I tightened my grip on Taylor's hand. My fingertips turned pale from the force with which I clenched them. Slowly, inch by inch, I turned around. Just then I saw him. Leaning against the kitchen doorway, he was watching me with a half smile, his eyes filled with an unreadable depth.